So wherever you are, whether it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, a very warm welcome to our webinar. I'm Adam Woodgate. I head up research for the Insights family here in the UK. Mario, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mario Dubois. I'm ex-commissioner at CBBC and CBeebies, and currently a freelancer, like many of you, running my own consultancy, working across multiple different platforms and genres, predominantly in the kids area. But also touching on audio and innovation and various other areas. So I'm delighted to be here and delighted to be talking to Adam.
And it's good to have you today, Mario. Thank you for your time. For anyone who is joining us that doesn't know about the Insight family, let me just give you a very quick précis of who we are and what we do. We are a kind of a syndicated insights business. We provide insights and data based on a continuous survey of children aged 3 to 18, the survey being sent to parents, and parents obviously completing the survey for younger kids, kids completing it on their own, as do teens. We have a survey of parents, and the parents of 1 to 16-year-olds, and in some markets we actually extend our range of kind of data gathering to right up to 30-year-olds with our next gen survey. So a little bit about us in case you're not familiar with us, but all our details is on our web, and there's some information about us at the end of today. So let's get started. Mary and I are going to try and keep this as casual as possible. We've got some slides that we've prepared in advance to kind of give a little bit of narrative of the story. And so we can kind of share. So there's who we are, and I thought we'd start really by giving some pen portrait views of a couple of the ages that we're really focused on. Sorry, before all of that, I should do the running order, forgetting the TV. So the running order for our session. So we're going to have a look at some pen portraits of UK boys and girls. We've just picked 2 ages. Just give you a sense of who they are from our data. We're going to look at content consumption amongst kids in the 3 to 10. Done that deliberately, really, because that's the most competitive market right now. The preschool and those middle grades, as our friends in America call it, but we call it middle childhood. Usage of devices, and then we're going to pick apart some things that will hopefully help you think about content expansion across platforms, how digital IPs are suddenly exploding. I'm thinking of what sparked this when Mario and I were talking a couple of weeks ago was the forthcoming launch of Minecraft the movie, which of course is now in cinemas, and you saw the numbers, or maybe you didn't, but it's been a box office smash, doubling what analysts predicted. Cross-platform engagement and some tracking kids' interests. So there's quite a lot to get through in the next 56 minutes or so. So without further ado, let's just give you a little
before you jump in there.
Sorry, Mario.
Just a quick thing, and I guess I wanted to just say how important today in this session is, because it's one of the big questions that's been at the heart of where the kids media industry has been thinking about, the issues about the lack of commissioning opportunities, the downturn in that, which has especially meant that lots of people haven't been working. There's a greater competition for slots and commissioning opportunities across the board, and whilst that's been going on, we're seeing kids absolutely thrive in terms of some of the other platforms. So this question about where do kids go is critical, as well as, how do you create new IP in order to fit with those platforms? And is there a sort of middle ground here in terms of how you create those IPs for traditional linear platforms, and how do you create them specifically or uniquely for the new social media platforms, including games? And I think by the end of this, I hope we can at least shed some light on the opportunity and get people thinking about what they can do in terms of their own approaches and how to navigate this sort of new market.
Yeah, and I think that's the world we live in. We're not going back to the old four-channel world. It's over. This is a digital world, and if anything, we're seeing the disruption of the disruptors. But we can cover that as we move through the hour. Let's have a look at those pen portraits just to give you a sense. So here's a typical 4-year-old girl in the UK. And now you might think when you're looking at these percentages, they're not big, but one of the things we do at the Insights family is we want kids to tell us what they want us to know. We don't need to confirm what we already know. So whereas we don't offer, so in when we show TV shows and favorite toys, they're telling us, or their parents on their behalf of the preschoolers are telling us. So that's why we're not seeing massive percentages. If you show pre-coded lists, you would see big percentages. But these are the kids telling us what they want us to know. And here we have a favorite toy is Lego. A favorite book is Giraffes Can't Dance. Favorite video game is produced by the BBC, CBBC Games. So really age appropriate stuff already. You're seeing Barbie as the favorite film, still locked in from many months ago, but still the legacy of a really heritage evergreen brand still engaging this audience. Pepper, 20 years old and looking as good as ever and about to have another brother or sister. The device that they're using, and this is the change for this generation. Remember, this generation now, anyone born post 2010, is curating their own media lives on a mobile connected screen. So whether that's tablet for the younger kids, like the 4-year-old here, or an older kid more likely to be on a smartphone. And their favorite YouTube site, YouTube network, and remember the word there is favorites. So they're choosing one of many, is YouTube. If we look at sorry, just bear with me a sec. If we look at the boys age 9 years old, so we've jumped up 5 years, the enduring nature of Lego. So 1 in 8 thereabouts is saying that Lego is their favorite toy. Harry Potter, the series of books. Roblox, no surprise, their favorite video game. However, I wonder if we did this in a few months' time, Mario, whether Minecraft might be challenging it. Spider-Man, absolutely enduring IP. It's many years old, but still engages all ages. In terms of the superhero genre. Football, I think you mentioned this, and the kids have put in football. So it could be live sports on Sky. It could be live Champions League. It could be match of the day. It could be match of the day too. It could be football focus. They're just putting football. I think they're shorthanding it. We don't know. The most accessible device for this audience is the TV. And slightly older kids here, but their favorite network, again, YouTube, won't be a surprise really to anybody.
It's interesting, isn't it, Adam, that especially when you're looking at things like football as a genre, that could be revealing that actually it's all about actually playing FIFA on your TV screen. So that's why it makes football as a generic thing interesting, but also the fact that it's up on multiple screens potentially. And I wonder whether the two charts here in terms of age, it's interesting seeing that Lego features on both, and especially for different age groups and genders. So worthwhile at some point thinking about what the power of Lego, and obviously I'm teaching lots of people to suck eggs here in terms of what that is, but that brand crosses over age groups and genders, and is a very active proposition in terms of a product. So
yeah,
yeah,
I sometimes think the reason when I look at Barbie, I don't see a doll. I see a platform that a kids uses to express themselves through fashion and design. And when I look at Lego, I see, yes, the brick, obviously. But if you look at how Lego, kind of is consumed, on one side you've got the slavishly following the book that shows you how to make the Millennium Falcon or whatever, but on the other side, it's the kid who goes, I'm going to take every brick I've got, I'm going to put it in the hallway and see how far I can get, how high I can get. And so it's that ability to take a consumable product, but turn it into something that I want to play with. I want to challenge myself. I want to use my imagination. And that's why I think Lego has that enduring nature. I think it's one of the reasons that evergreen toys, it lasts so long. And I think, the more a product, an IP is a platform, the more I think it lends itself to having greater longevity as opposed to a single consumable product.
Mm. Yeah, and I suppose the interpretation of that product is, can be in many different forms, from a TV show to animation to physical toy product, which is interesting because as a product, you can create whatever you want from it. It's got a neutrality about it, which is interesting. You can be creative with it as much as you want. And I wonder whether that's one of the sort of beauties of something like that, that it's in the hands of the audience in terms of what they do with it, as well as all the other elements that stimulate the brand.
I think it's a really democratic sort of product that, or brand that kids can do what they want with. They can mix and match, and I mean, when many times when I've been in home and seen kids, they plug brands together that I'm sure brand managers would be horrified. They'll have a Barbie doll, at a tea party with playing Toca Tea Party with their teddy bear and maybe a dinosaur, and it makes sense to the kid, but for the brand manager, it doesn't make sense because that's not how it works in a branded world. But for the kid, it absolutely makes sense because you're just facilitating their play. And at the end of the day, that's what all entertainment's about. It's kind of about facilitating enjoyment and, play, relaxation, creativity, imagination, and so forth.
Mm.
Shall
Yeah,
we jump on?
yeah, sure. Actually, just quickly, the other thing that I noticed, obviously, and again, this is self-evident, that just in terms of the older boy age group, obviously games feature much more about that. So YouTube and Roblox are in there, which I think says something about the autonomy that kids of that age are gravitating to and have more access to. So, access to games at a younger age actually is absolutely the way that works. So, the question for me is about, is parental influence and trust being more flexible because you're letting kids at an earlier age have access to those channels and those games networks.
Well, I think the other thing here is we've got a generation that's been born into tapping and swiping, that no previous generation has. So they expect their entertainment to be interactive and immersive. They're quite happy to lean back and watch their favorite TV show, but they also then want to take their favorite IP and play with it. So they're using Roblox Studio, they're using Fortnite Creative. Maybe not the youngest, but certainly the middle childhood and young teens certainly are to create and make and play and share. And I think that changes the world that we're in, and it makes it harder for legacy media really to compete because that's not the background that we all grew up in. I started in '89, and Sky hadn't even started in the UK. So we're looking at a generation that wants more, and I think for the TV industry, providing kids with some, kind of collateral that they can include in their little Roblox at, hobbies and things like that is probably a smart move to build that fandom.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, shall we?
Next.
Well, just while I thought it would be nice to just help the audience kind of get a sense of the fact that I often say when I'm speaking at conferences, in a kid, we don't see it as adults, but kids really do have a view that certain devices or screens have a key purpose. Obviously, a games console is for gaming, really. But when we look at different ages of use, and this is a real broad 3 to 10 here, the tablet is primarily used for gaming and video. But you'll notice a little bit further down there, they're also using it to submit homework on. or complete homework on and reading. The smartphone's much more short bursts, staying in touch. And obviously, that's not the 3-year-old, but certainly, when you look at this age group, the smartphone kicks in sort of 7, 8 upwards. So it's all short form, it's all in interaction, it's all staying connected. And then TV very much is still primarily what you would class as TV content. The gaming there could be a gaming app that's on the smart TV. It could also be gaming content, being viewed through YouTube, and we know there's growing numbers of kids watching YouTube on the TV. But it could also be the games console connected to the TV, because obviously an Xbox needs a screen, so it could be that as well. But you still see that video dominates TV. Staying connected dominates smartphone. The tablet is kind of a mixture between gaming and video.
Mm.
Um, and our next sort of, so I think that's something to think about, especially when you're purposing content. If you're thinking about building an app for a 3 to 5-year-old, the tablet's probably the right place for it. Whereas if you're thinking of something for an older kid, you might want to be thinking smartphone first. So that's kind of where I'd give some, thoughts around that. Let's move on. And what you see here is really the kind of the growth in the sort of the devices that kids are using to consume their content. So this is the proportion who use it for an hour long or more amongst the 3 to 10s, and we're looking at kind of a period from October 24 to Feb 25 versus a year earlier. And you can see that there's growth in console use. And are we surprised, when gaming is so intrinsic in this audience's life? They start on snackable short form games as young kids, ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, matching pairs, and then start moving into the franchises like Mario and Sonic, before moving on to the open world or sort of sandbox gaming platforms, which include Minecraft and Roblox, before moving into the big sort of more serious gamer franchises like the Call of Duties and so forth like that. Laptops growing, but laptops we found during COVID was very much used for education, or kind of those people who wanted to online game. Mobile, obviously, smartphone is the term I prefer to use. Again, we're seeing growth. Tablets kind of flat. There's not been a lot of innovation in the tablet, so and also it tends to be clunky. And kids, once they kind of get their smartphone, the tablet gets put in a drawer. It only really came out during COVID, when they needed to use it for schooling, if their school provided online kind of lessons. And the TV is pretty static. It kind of is maxed out and tends to be concurrent family viewing, on the TV, whereas tablet and mobile tends to be more personal experience, so they tend to use it in their everyday life.
It's interesting that figure hasn't gone down though, Adam, isn't it, in terms of TV? Because I mean, it's still a huge driver in terms of viewership and ownership.
Yeah, and I think let's look. I was born in the linear TV world. I'm very anyone who knows me knows that I will fight for broadcast linear, because I think it has a massive place in the world, and it proves itself time and time again. It's able to bring in big audiences. Look at BBC Gladiators. That first series brought in 1.5 million kids on a Saturday night. Kids live in an unscheduled world. Everything's on demand, online, instant access. Actually, the schedule that wonderful people in children's television and in the broadcasting world create actually gives them some structure in life, some call to view, call to action. I'm sure you probably remember from your days at the BBC, and I was lucky enough to work at the BBC in sort of 2010 through 2013. And often when that schedule changed on the morning, on CBeebies, there was an influx of parents complaining that their kids who'd been watching Chuggington on the Friday, it wasn't there on the Monday because the seasonal schedule had changed. And that's how impactful it is. And knowing, I've been in homes where kids have set their, they get to watch SpongeBob at 7:30, and when the episode is over, they've got to get their blazer on or sweater on. and out to the bus stop because that is their marker. So, linear does have a place in kids' worlds. The problem with linear is, of course, and a lot of kids' content is made in advance. And so why wait for it to be scheduled if you love it? If you love SpongeBob, why wait when you can just get
Mm,
it on demand?
mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you in terms of the sort of like the routine that is been built into kids' lives. Not just in terms of the different series that are on, but the fact that Newsround was on in pretty much every school at between 8 and 9 during Breakfast Club. And that was a way of getting news to kids in a way that was very consumable and appropriate. So yeah, I think linear has and still has a massive impact. It's interesting all the other platforms and devices are growing. So, maybe it's an interesting sort of opportunity to think about how do you sort of work on all those platforms in order to create new IP and make things work across different platforms.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone were joining us was at Kids Screen Summit in San Diego and listened to Andy Yeatman speak about Miraculous Tales of Ladybug and Cat Noir, he said, they get great audiences on streaming, but in the markets where they've got a linear partner, their audience pops significantly. And I think, I, I, I remember that, saying at conferences, I never believed that it was linear or streaming. I think audiences choose based on mood and need. And I think they've got a whole raft of things. And sometimes you just want to go in and watch what's on. Sometimes you want to get active in your choosing. And the figure here we've put up is that, 1 in 4 kids in the UK are watching broadcast channels. So it's not dead. It's not what it was, and it never will be, but it's still there. That is a sizable chunk of UK kids. So, I think let's not wipe it off let's not hasten its own demise. There is a value in the curation of that schedule of light and shade, live action animation, different themes, different genres. There is a big value in that, and kids love it.
You won't have the figures for this, Adam, but I suspect I'd love to know of that linear audience, what are the brands that are doing really well on other platforms, and how big is that universe in terms of that whole network that you can connect together? So, you've got your Hey Dougie, you've got the physical live experience, you've got theatre experience, you've got potentially some games. If you brought together the universe around those brands, it would be a pretty significant number.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that the difficulty that the industry faces is measurement. And I know Barb were working hard. I know, Justin Sampson was speaking at MIP London and he said they're going to now measure the top 100 YouTube channels. So we're getting there. It's a slow process, but we still measure pipes rather than IP. How much better would it be if we measured Hey Dougie, the IP, and an episode of Hey Dougie, rather than the pipes that Hey Dougie comes down, and half the pipes that kids are consuming it on can't be measured in comparison to other. Because at the end of the day, if you're a content maker, you want to be able to go and say, this is my audience. And if you're a in-house BBC producer, you want to say, this is my audience across everything I distribute on. Please fund another series.
Mm.
And it's very easy for the C-suites to go, but if you have that hard data that covers all the platforms you're distributing on, and I know there's all the metrics, but it's knowing what that soup is in the middle, that where the duplication sits, that's the problem.
And also, I guess it's for new IPs, you want to have that data in order to say, actually, we think this is a new IP and this would really work and pop on the YouTube channel or, some of the more social networks or a game or Roblox. So it's interesting how you can inform that commissioning decision because you've got some evidence to say, actually, there's a gap in the market or something equally similar actually has worked.
Yeah, and we can't overlook the fact that these are the five big brands in the UK that dominate kids' lives. You've got your YouTube and YouTube Kids, you've got your Netflix, your Disney Plus, which is a relatively new arrival, but with Disney turning off their linear channels, it's the only way to get Disney content, and Sky Kids, which it, it is only available through Sky. Subscribers started actually is kind of a reversal. It started as a purely on demand and now has a linear channel, and sits there, and and certainly in Sky Homes is very appreciated by viewers. So that you have got kind of this kind of mix and match of different things. YouTube is the YouTube experience is very different to the Netflix Disney Plus experience, and Sky Kids 2 is very distinctive. Lucy's created a very distinctive brand there.
Mm. The other thing that strikes me is that the willingness to window content, especially on different platforms. So you might get a first broadcast, and the origination might sit on a different channel, but actually getting hold of a second window of something might well be possible. And there's a fluidity about that now, which is, I think, really helpful in terms of elevating a brand and making a brand bigger. More
Yeah,
platforms, more opportunity, more eyeballs.
I guess the big decision, isn't it, for the IP owner is to go, do I go exclusive with a single partner, or do I go, no, I'm going to take this everywhere because it's about the maximizing the number of eyeballs that I get. So I guess that's always the biggest decision. Does the big check from, say, the Netflix or the Prime Video, really entice, or is it better to have multiple deals and non-exclusivity because you're reaching a bigger audience, therefore building a bigger brand?
Mm.
I don't think that's one I can answer.
No,
Talking of brands, should we,
yeah.
have a look? I think I've been saying on stage long before I joined the Insight family, and good ex-colleagues of mine have done the same, which is, content used to originate in books, in TV, and then used to make its way onto other platforms. But really, we've now seen that shift around. And whilst there's one example on here of a traditional sort of approach, which is toy to TV and game, which is Monster High, we've obviously got, and we don't need to dwell on it too much. Minecraft, originally a game, with a game with no rules. If anyone sees the first 10 minutes of Minecraft, which is posted online, it's a really interesting read because it's just chat between gamers. But obviously, Warner's acquired the rights to the movie back in the middle of the last decade, and it's taken them a good 8 to 10 years to come to market. But I think they've done it and done it right. And anyone who's been into the cinemas and seen the OGs, dressing up as villagers or creepers or dressing up in and to watch the film, I think we're going to see this generational thing with that.
Mm.
You've got Miss Rachel and Mr. Beast and Coco Melon, all, and Blippy, or I remember Blippy at Kids Screen coming round, long before getting, any traction. Now look at that. You've got four brands there launching on YouTube and then making their way, still not quite to traditional media, although heading that way. Coco Melon certainly is available on the digital platforms of some traditional broadcasters, but you've kind of got this whole sort of brands now originating in the digital space or as games or as YouTube videos, and then making their way into more traditional places.
Do you think there's some advantage and issues around original IP coming out of YouTube? What would you say were the plus and negatives for it, Adam?
Well, I'd say that the pluses are there's zero barriers to entry. You can you can experiment. What I love, I always use this analogy: the YouTuber wakes up at 6, has an idea at 7, drafts it out at 8, records it at 9, edits it by 10, uploads it at 11, and by 12 they're getting feedback. No TV that I know works that fast, other than maybe a live show.
Mm.
And I think that for me, if I was, in the content creation business, I would be using YouTube. The negative to me is there's gazillions of videos on there, and being discovered is not going to be easy. And I think that, there are ways to kind of play with it. And I think the dynamic of YouTube Shorts and YouTube itself are interesting. But I think that, it's not necessarily going to be easy. But look at Coco Melon to me, husband and wife, decided to take that brand, put it on YouTube, and then, everyone's dived on after it because it's become a phenomenon. Mr. Beast, a phenomenon, in terms of, his popularity, very, very, kind of elements of philanthropy in there that I think, tick boxes with kids. But his series that, that was it called Beast Games, Beast Quest,
Mm,
Beast Games, did
mm.
very well, on Prime Video. It was, an interesting experiment of someone, moving into a more traditional sort of kind of TV-like space.
And I suppose that the other element, the worry, I guess, for some people who are more, I'm not typecasting people here, but who are more thinking about real value to kids in terms of educational value or learning around stuff or good behavior is that doesn't feel like it's a natural home necessarily in on YouTube. And maybe that's changing. Maybe there is stuff out there that actually does do all that, but um, there probably is a bit of reticence to sort of say, well, will those formats cut through in terms of large volume, or is it just a place for exciting new entertainment sort of formats?
I think YouTube for me, I find it really interesting, because it started as a place of exploration. It's become a place of discovery. Um, for me, it satisfies loads of needs because I remember during COVID we did some work, and the number one place that kids, of a certain age, were getting their news from about COVID was YouTube. They were looking at all the videos posted, coalescing what it was saying, and coming together a conclusion. They weren't turning on the nightly news. They weren't turning on BBC News. They weren't going to the paper or news websites. They wanted to get a grip of what was going on, especially in a world
Mm,
where no parents had lived through a pandemic. So therefore, that usual dynamic of parents reassuring their kids everything's going to be all right wasn't happening. So kids were kind of using this platform that's become their best friend, probably, or one of their closest friends,
mm,
because of what it delivers in their life, not necessarily the brand is their friend. And I think we see that, the kid who really is into sharks will go deep, deep, deep into sharks, or the kid who's into, wants to understand about space travel or rockets or architecture. That YouTube satisfies those curiosities. And I think in
mm,
that sense, it's always going to be different. And YouTube has also foisted, you know, an evolution of formats. I mean, music TV used to be the world of MTV. They're watching music videos on YouTube now, not on TV.
mm,
And you could argue that unboxing is, a YouTube format. Well, it isn't really because those big reveal shows, like, the home improvement shows, that's just unboxing. But YouTube has kind of made it their home. Certainly, the how-to gaming walkthrough genres, definitely that would have none of that would have existed on linear broadcasting because it's too niche.
mm,
And YouTube does that, so you can have a very broad subject or you can have a very, very narrow subject, and YouTube satisfies that audience.
mm. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you because actually, it is to a certain extent a learning experience with all those formats. We just haven't seen it in that way because the conventional sort of process hasn't been that.
Yeah, no, it hasn't. And here's what I call the YouTube of video games, which is Roblox. And this is Cartoon Channel, which is from the folks at Genius Brands. It's a fast channel, but they've definitely jumped on the fact that there is a way to integrate the Roblox phenomenon with traditional entertainment, and they have the Roblox Rumble, and this is great, and I recommend anyone should watch it. It ticks lots of boxes because it means that, kids kids are seeing kids, and kids love to see kids taking part in stuff. It's ticking the box because Roblox is very much the place where kids can go, use the studio, make little games, share them with their friends. Look what happened during COVID. We had Roblox birthday parties. So it's definitely a platform. And if you go into Roblox, it isn't just one game, and this is what I say, parents often get frustrated by kids saying, can you put your password in? I need to download this. With Roblox, parents download it once to the kid's device, and then they've got hundreds of thousands of games to go at, or experiences. And obviously, brands are seeing that. So we've got Nike Land and the Nickverse in there, and we've got lots of little things. And here's as I say, the Cartoon Channel jumping on this, and they're taking it into a partnership with View Cinemas here in the UK as well.
Mm. I mean, there's a word, cautionary word around all of this, which is, obviously the elephant in the room, which is, lots of people are concerned about that environment and its safety approach, which we can't solve here. And I know lots of people looking at, how regulation might support that and make it a safer area. But I guess it is still a concern in terms of how much autonomy you give children to play in those areas.
Yeah, and I think, as a dad, it's my job to do some parenting in this, and I do think, I know the guys at Roblox take very seriously their role. They know they've got children's audience, and a big chunk of their audience are children, and they take things very seriously, just like anyone who works, whether it's in TV or anywhere in the kids space. We all take it very seriously because these little ones are our futures, and they're going to be looking after us, and we need to do what we can as adults to protect them.
Mm.
And so I agree with you. Parents, I've been in homes, and parents have said, when I hear my little one watching Scooby-Doo or SpongeBob, I know the theme tune, so I, let them get on with it. But if I hear something I'm not familiar with, an unfamiliar voice or an unfamiliar theme tune, I'm in that room just checking it out, that they've not got into somewhere they shouldn't have gone.
Mm. Yeah. Yep. So next slide.
So yeah, so we're looking here, it's sort of like this. I think this is where we kind of think about, monetization from a brand owner and IP owner perspective, but also turning it from an audience perspective. You as an IP owner, you want to monetize your IP as best as possible, and we've seen, the classic person who did that was Disney. Sat there in 1957, drafted out his flywheel of how he could maximize the opportunity from every theatrical release through a theme park, through toys, through t-shirts and sweatshirts and so forth. You've probably seen that.
Mm.
But also flipping it round, kids want merchandise or consumer products or other experiences related to their favorite IP. There was a lot of, you know, in the run up to the first Lego movie, I remember there was a lot of speculation, will it or won't it work? And of course, it smashed it out of the park with very catchy theme tunes and a really good storyline. Then you've got the kid who loves Scooby-Doo and wants the Scooby-Doo cuddly toy, or the kid who wants to be able to play the Scooby-Doo game. They want these additional ways to consume their favorite IP. They still love it on the native platform, i.e., where they saw it, but they still want these experiences elsewhere.
Yeah, and more so, when you're sort of considering creating your own IP, that's one of the factors. It's sort of global exploitation. Where can it be on different platforms? How can you monetize and commercialize any of it that makes sense and has scale and volume?
And I think these are very traditional platforms. There's nothing new here. The kid who loves Minecraft that wants the Lego Minecraft set, or the soft toy creeper made by Mattel. That they're all new. I think what we're going to see soon is these new ways of monetizing, which is Things like, you putting your merchandise into Roblox and kids using the Robux, which is the in-game currency, to buy that merch and dress up their avatar in, for once, a SpongeBob baseball cap, or, SpongeBob shorts or something like that, which are going to be new sources of revenue to IP owners that they may have never thought about before, because it's a competitive world, and you need to, just like you need to capture eyeballs where they are, you need to look at opportunities, to monetize where kids are as well.
Mm. Yeah, I guess there's a risk to that in terms of knowing, again, going back to your previous note about how do you know these things are going to be lucrative and viable. You've got to have the data in order to project and suggest that they are to investors, not just broadcasters.
Yeah, and I think, and the old mechanics still work. I mean, anyone who saw the integration, and I know it's probably moving away from kids a little bit, but I know about it. There was an integration that was done in Roblox by Superdrug. In the integration, they gave away codes. 15,000 were redeemed, against,
Mm.
that gave you something when you went in store. So it was that taking from digital to physical, and I think, those are no different mechanics to clipping out the coupon in the newspaper 40 years ago and taking it into a shop to get, your free toothbrush or whatever. I think the mechanics still work. We just need to do the treatment in a very contemporary way, so it excites and captures the imagination of audiences.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, questions. What, with kids media, fragmenting, what strategies should brands adopt to ensure consistent engagement across channels? I mean, here's just something that, I hope everyone knows, but I always sometimes worry that when you like me and live in the data a lot of your life, that it's not necessarily at the forefront of everyone's mind. You know, 2/3 of kids in the US, 3 to 10, play video games. It's 8 out of 10 in the UK. And it wobbles around a bit, but, and that's all games. So that's everything from those simple little games that you give your preschooler to learn, where it's matching pairs, right through to the complex, the big games, the big EA Sports, Ubisoft type games. And I think, the difficulty is working out a kid's life. If you take away 8 hours, if you take their school day, 8 hours of sleep, approximately 5 to 6 hours in school. So that eats up a lot of the day. Then there's committed time of eating, and maybe time that parents control outside of the school. Then you're left with this battle for maybe somewhere around 4 or 5 hours a day, depending on the age of the child, maybe a little bit more for preschoolers, that you are battling for. And the day isn't getting bigger. It's only 24 hours. So, if you're winning, if you're gaining, you're taking someone else's share of the cake. Now, there are things that kids can do like adults can do. So you can listen to music and read, or listen to music and play with toys. So some stuff is cumulative, but generally a lot of the stuff isn't. It's either or. So I think that, it's my thought here though is, make sure you've got games as part of your strategy, especially with this generation. You have to have some level of engagement in this immersive, interactive world.
Mm. And that might not necessarily be complex games or expensive games. You don't have to go for a AAA game here, but something that captures the imagination about your brand and what your brand delivers.
Exactly. I mean, who'd have thought when Angry Birds started as kind of a simple physics puzzle that it
Mm.
would be a phenomenon, because it was one of the first sort of apps that was a game, or, and then obviously along came things like Temple Run, the Infinite Runners, Subway Surfers, Candy Crush, which isn't really a kid's game, but is still basically a matching pairs type game. And actually, kids love because often they're better than their parents. So we get reverse mastery where the kid teaches the parent. And we know
Mm,
that kids sometimes just love like turning the tables on adults. So, so in that sense, I think, sometimes simple is really effective.
mm. Yep, agreed.
And of course, we talk about YouTube. I don't think we can ever get away from YouTube anymore. And for some, the question is YouTube the new television? I certainly think YouTube is the new multi-channel television because of its, free at the point of consumption, um, you know, breadth of what's available, that you want to watch when you want to watch it. I think the big thing for me is this shorts strategy of how you take YouTube shorts and use them to grab attention. And they're only 10, 20 seconds long, but that attention grabbing can then feed through to more longer engagement. And I think we should try and move away from saying that YouTube is short form. YouTube is all form. I mean, and more recently, if anyone saw in February Warner's announcement that they were putting about 36 full-length feature films on YouTube of all different, a mix and match sort of thing. That to me is the theatrical release is a super long form. So, YouTube isn't just a short form platform anymore. It's various lengths of video, and different. But YouTube Shorts is kind of that tactic that you could probably use to help you get audience into your channel on YouTube.
Mm. Yeah, it feels like a low cost, low risk opportunity as well, especially when you're thinking about working with new talent across different genres. It offers you an ability to test and trial.
Yeah, and I think you can incubate stuff.
Mm,
You can try this, try that, try the other, get feedback, which I don't think there's any, faster mechanism of getting feedback. I mean, maybe there is, but I think that is really valuable in today. You want, try hard, fail fast sort of approach, before you
mm,
start tapping into what's in the bank,
mhm.
doing it in the most agile, cost-effective way and using a platform that already delivers big audiences, big eyeballs, and just then use tactics to try and make yourself get noticed on there.
And YouTube itself encourages you to do that. They have access to their network facilities and opportunities around development as well.
Yeah, and they help you edit stuff now with AI. Where you've got the ability, and we see it with kids where, they want to upskill, but while they're upskilling, they're using AI to fill in those gaps. So if they need to generate a character, or they need to generate sort of
Mm,
an image or a background or a setting, they can use Midjourney or DALL-E or something to do that,
mm,
and mix that in, and YouTube will help you edit. It helps you produce stuff. TikTok does the same. I mean, remember all the little dancing
mm.
parent and child videos, short videos that were posted on TikTok during COVID and stuff. That the platform helps you make these things. So your device, is a recorder, a camera, an editor, a production piece, and then the platforms themselves help you, which I think is
Mm.
amazing.
Yeah.
How can you track and respond to kids' evolving interests well? I suppose the obvious thing to say is that you can do research. It's what we do, and I think the thing is, there's obviously syndicated services like ours, but you can obviously do ad hoc. You can, do social listening to parents. You can just be very observant as you walk around the streets. One of our questions that we ask is again open-ended, and we ask what kids are talking about. And you can see there the percentages are low because the conversations are vast. They cover all kinds of things, ranging from what they're worried about, what they have to do, what's coming up at the weekend, where they might go on holiday, to the brands and content they love. And brands and content will always be high up in their lives. Here's the top five very recently in the UK. You'll notice what's in there is not TV or TV shows, and that does change around. If we look at younger kids, we do see the preschool shows appearing, but certainly for older kids, TV is part of their lives. And I don't want to say because it's not there, it's not part of their lives and they care about it. It's just when they come to thinking about what's more front of mind, it's these kind of things.
Mm. Yeah, completely understandable. It's stuff that they engage with, and to a certain extent, they're probably seeing TV as a slightly different medium where they access this content.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think this changes by country as well. In more traditional markets where say continental Europe, where linear still has a much bigger footprint, say France or Germany, we do see different. Yeah, and that's why I always say that the thing is you can't just apply what's going on in the US to every other market or the UK to every other market because every country has its own cultural values, social values, distinctiveness. US has time zones. Europe doesn't, and that they all affect the way audiences behave. And another question we ask is what films are they looking out forward to? And we've seen, and this is a great question because it really started to pick up Minecraft when kids started noticing Minecraft on Doritos bags, Minecraft on Happy Meals, and this kind of rolling out of the partnerships, but also, the big billboards around towns, that were showing Jack Black as the Steve character, which personally I think is brilliant casting. I think, I
Mm.
can't think of someone who's more like Steve.
Mm. Yeah.
Which platforms are currently driving the most engagement, and how does this influence IP development and brand partnerships? So, here's just some stats that we've pulled up. I think for me, Sarah DeWitt, who heads up PBS Kids, was speaking at MIP Junior a couple of years ago, and it really stood up to me, which is, when people pitch to her now, she's thinking, how can we turn this into a totally 360-degree experience? So they're going with the TV show, but she's thinking, how does it look as a PBS Kids game? How does it look as maybe merchandise? How does it look on different platforms? And I think, 20 years ago, or even, we were making TV shows, and then down the road you go, oh, we need an app for that, or we need a game for that. I think now you're starting with an IP, you're creating the IP, and you're taking the IP and you're building a roadmap. And maybe your first place of port of call is YouTube Shorts or YouTube, and then your second port of call might be a little integration, a little, white label game that you skin in Roblox, and then somewhere down the road there's the TV series and maybe the movie and the consumer products and so forth. And I think it's about the fact that the audience wants that IP. You can't just make a TV show and that be done anymore. It has to be an IP that you can monetize, build an audience, build fandom against, and take that forward. And numbers on the screen here are just that I thought was interesting, was just the growth of the proportion of kids in the UK 3 to 10 who are visit the cinema twice a month or more. So that's a third. That's a big growth year on year. Now, often cinema goes in cycles depending on the movies that are out there. And this does include the Christmas period as well. So, but it's still a huge jump. And I think cinema, the one thing about cinema when I've spoken to kids is cinema is that moment of excitement. It's the giant screen, it's the popcorn, it's the the soft drinks and the bag of sweets, and it's kind of that thing that's an event in their lives. And this goes back to my point about they live an unscheduled life, so all these little things are really good to look forward to. And I think kids, cinema is obviously an expensive something expensive to make a theatrical release, but certainly kids appreciate it when they get a chance to go.
Mm. Yeah, you're right about the fandom thing. I mean, in my experience, having some information about the current state of the fans that love your IP is a really powerful weapon to use. If you've got a YouTube following, or if you've got, I don't know, a podcast that does really well that could convert to other platforms, that really is quite a powerful message in terms of actually I don't need to, I've got my own gut instincts, but also I know that actually this works for the audience. Um, so yeah, I'd echo your thoughts around how important fandom is.
Yeah, and I think, again, I think back to the clock. If your fan isn't necessarily exclusive to you, but they are most passionate about your brand, you trying to acquire casual users onto your brand means you're trying to kind of get some away from being a fan of another brand, and that's not easy. You're trying to use the spatula to scrape them away from another brand, and
Mm,
that may be a really hard effort, whereas it might just be easier to super serve your core brand, who are the ones that are going to wear the t-shirt, are going to be advocating you in the playground, in the schoolyard, and talking very highly of what you do. So what factors are, and that fandom leads, is interesting because this is where licensed products come in, and we're seeing mass, I was in the supermarket yesterday and I couldn't believe that I saw Bluey cake mix and Peppa Pig cake mix being made by Betty Crocker, or one of the,
mm,
and it's like, wow, that we really are going further and further with IP in licensing. So,
mm,
in terms of, so here's, how kids are discovering sort of, brands, still, that friends, word of mouth is massive. Friends talk about stuff, and and you trust your friends. You build those peer groups, you trust those. Parents still really important. In a world of declining TV advertising still outperforms, other platforms only a little bit now, and that gap's narrowed. Um, but you look at the top three of the top five there are real people, their friends, their parents, their siblings and relatives. But notice how games, around 1 in 8 saying that games is a real discovery platform now.
mm,
If you've ever watched kids run up and down a toy store, you'll know that or grab a box of toys, they shake them and they look at the box and feel the value inside. So, I think you've got, what we're seeing here is, how, kids are discovering those other platforms for, where you can promote things if you're licensing your IP.
mm.
And we're coming to the end here with the rise of franchises hitting the screens. So we've got Super Mario, Roblox, now Minecraft. How are these digital brands reshaping the traditional IP landscape? So this is actually quite 2 or 3 years old now, but and this is always a question that I've been asked, which is, these are the number of games related to an IP. Um, and if you take WWE, and this was something that the WWE people told me, they've never made a game for Roblox. This is fandom. Now, obviously, WWE fans go into adulthood, but it's about the fact that this is Roblox allows this expression of fandom. And as an IP owner, if your TV, it was always you made money from licensing and syndication. And if someone, stepped on your toes, it was a breach of copyright, and there would usually be a lawyer's cease and desist order en route. But this generation wants to play with your brand, your IP, and I feel as though that there's a real sense of, providing that they don't bring your brand into disrepute, that actually this is a good thing for you.
Mm. Yeah, I mean that's a significant number, and it sort of means that there's a an opportunity to sort of think about how you exploit your brands on those gaming platforms.
Yeah. And you don't have to build a universe that costs $1 million. You can do
Mm.
integrations, that you can do pop-ups, you can do skin a white label game, so do a partnership with someone who's created, and again, Roblox, a platform of, games, a platform of discovery now. So why not just try something out? It doesn't have to cost a lot. And here's the Disney flywheel, that really just shows, back in 1957, the great Walt was thinking about how he can maximize his theatrical releases across everything, and really then the interconnect. This is about the interconnectivity. And this is available online, so do have a look on the internet. But I think it's very much the world we're living in, and he couldn't foresee, obviously, the digital opportunities that layer on top of this. But even in an analog world, there were lots of amazing ways to exploit your brand or your IP.
Hmm. I mean, one just as a pointer, Yuki, who the UK games organization, are a font of knowledge in terms of who you might work with. So it might be well worthwhile talking to them about some opportunities and some collaborations. They're the trade body for UK games and interactive entertainment industries in the UK.
They're really good. They're very helpful. Okay, well, we've hit our time limit. So
Oh,
thank
great.
you. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. You were brilliant as ever, and we could have gone on for another 2 hours, I think. But it was really illuminating, and thank you for all the data that you made available as well through the Insight family. Is that going to be available to users?
Yes. Yes, we're going to share this and make available anyone who registered but couldn't make it. So it's great. Thank you for your time, Mario. Great to talk to you. I agree. We could have made this, a really long conversation. I think we've only just skimmed the surface of the world. I mean, my key takeouts are just, if you're in IP creation, you've got YouTube, you've got Roblox, you've got low cost of entry, low, platforms where you can try hard, fail fast. That's where I will be trying stuff. You get some numbers, you can then have conversations with the more traditional media partners when you've got something to work with.
And in your stats, Adam, are there some numbers or uh, are there some places where potential IP creators can go to get more numbers?
I mean, in terms of available data, obviously,
Mm.
you can see the metrics that are with every YouTube video. You can see subscriptions to channels, and there's lots of stuff available in the domain. The kids space is harder because of obviously restrictions around doing research with kids, which is why we exist, really, to be that safe place that people can come to, knowing that we've actually gone through parents, to get permissions, full permissions to, ask kids about their media lives. But you will get some data online, and obviously we have some free publications. One here is our future forecast. But you can always chat to our team.
And I'd say, just as a sort of user of the service, I think the three publications are great. They give me a load of insight and information that I would not normally have access to. So if anyone's thinking about getting on there, go to the Insight Family website, because there's some really useful stuff on there.
Thank you. Well, everyone, thank you wherever you are. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Take care, and we hope to see you soon.